Good day, folks. Welcome to the MB Wildman channel. On today's video, I'm going over 3 trail camera mistakes that you can make when you're setting out your trail cam that's just going to ruin your hunt, ruin your day. It doesn't matter whether you're out there looking for deer, looking for bear, looking for turkey. It doesn't matter what you're looking for, even if you're just looking, like checking out your property for what's on it and who's on it. These are some tips that you can use to get better results from your trail cameras. Listen, if you haven't yet subscribed to MB Wildman channel, we sure would appreciate it. Just go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And if you like the content that we're putting out here on the channel, just go ahead and hit that bell down there somewhere, and you'll be notified when we upload new stuff. So only about 15% or so of you that are watching the videos are actually subscribing to the channel. It really helps us out if you do actually subscribe. Hit that subscribe button for us. We would certainly appreciate that here in the MB Wildman world. All right, so I did a video a week or so ago about 3 of the trail camera mistakes that you can make. I got all kinds of comments on the video, all kinds of people saying, well, what about this? What about that? What about this? So here we go. 3 more tips, mistakes that you can make when you're setting up your trail camera, things to avoid doing, right? So the first thing, and again, in no particular order, the first thing that you can do, one of the mistakes you can make is you can set up your trail camera perpendicular to the area that you want to watch. Okay, so for example, we've got this nice trail. It comes right, how can I show you? So it comes right across through these woods, and then it cuts around this way, and then it kind of heads back that way. Okay, what you don't want to do is you don't want to set your trail camera up so you're only like intersecting that trail. You want to make sure you set it along the length, or at least a good section of it, like a 30-degree angle is kind of what I like to use. I don't like to put it directly on the trail because I don't want them to walk up, right to it and sniff it and smell it and whatever else. Not that they typically do, but I don't put them right on the trail. I like to pick a tree that's off the trail and looking at about a 30-degree angle up the trail. So what this will do is it'll allow the camera to trigger, and then I'll get the video as they come down the trail. Or it will allow the camera to trigger, and then depending on their speed, I might get a second picture as they get closer to the camera. But what I can tell you that I'll get if I just point it straight at the trail, right? So like, oh, look, there's a good trail. I'll put a camera here, point it at the trail. What you're going to get is you're going to get an awful lot of animals just barely coming into the frame, just like this. Okay, so you're just going to get these few pictures of animals that are just starting into the trail. So you're really not going to get a good gauge of what it is, the size of it, the shape of it, all of those types of things, especially if you're just watching the trail, because they don't typically stand around a whole lot and you get several different pictures like you're at a bait site or something like that. Okay. A lot of these cameras, like I use a Browning micro cam. I love these cameras. I also use Tacticams, but they all boast really fast trigger speeds, like 0.4 seconds or 0.5 seconds or whatever, which is really great. It means that you don't miss a lot of stuff, but it also means that you get an awful lot of pictures just as something's barely entering the frame. Well, I've got my camera set to take 2 pictures, click, click, and then fall asleep for a minute, and then turn back on, and if it still senses motion, go ahead and take 2 more pictures. But if my trigger speed is set super fast and I'm only watching the trail, I get click, click, and that's all. And then by the time it wakes up again, they're gone. So you don't get a lot of pictures. I've made that mistake before. So again, thing to avoid number 1 is setting your trail camera directly perpendicular, straight across a trail. You should angle it up or angle it back the trail to get a better view of what's coming and going. Okay. Mistake number 2 also has to do with camera placement out there in the world. A lot of you and I've done the same thing. Again, I am not the expert. I'm just telling you what I've done and some of the mistakes that I've made. So another thing that you can do, a lot of us like to set our trail cameras way up high. Keeps it out of reach of bears here in New Brunswick. It keeps it out of reach of maybe possible people, right? So I used to actually lug in the bottom rung of a tree stand, and I would lean it up against the back of the tree. I would climb up that 6 feet or so of the bottom rung, and then I would strap my camera way up here in the tree. So I'm literally 6 feet tall, and the ladder was 4 or 5 feet. So I was 10 or 11 feet up there. And then I would point my camera down at my salt or at the area that I wanted to watch. Seemed like a good plan, but I couldn't figure out why I wasn't getting very many pictures. I was only getting a few photos when I should normally be getting hundreds and hundreds. It turns out that I was actually defeating some of the great features of the cameras, right? So by setting them up high, I had to turn them at such an angle downward like this to reach my spot that I was limiting the IR field. Okay, so again, these micro cams, they say that they will take pictures out to 90 feet. Well, if I go 12 feet up in a tree and point it down and I'm only 6 feet out, I'm only seeing about like 18 feet is what I've got, right? 18 to 20 feet between the camera and the salt or whatever I want to look at. And I can only see the width and the size of the camera, the area that it can see. I can't see way out into the woods. I can't see the approach. I can't see anything like that, right? Because I've actually taken one of the great features of my camera, the distance that it can sense, and I've limited it. I've cut it, I've chopped it off, right? So now an animal literally has to walk all the way up and literally stick their head into my salt lick or in underneath the camera because it's at such an angle before it will trigger. Okay, so I wasn't getting any pictures because I was defeating the whole idea of getting the wide pictures. So I've dropped my cameras down. Now all of my cameras are literally between 4 and 5 feet up, and they are still pointed down a little bit, but I make sure that I can see out into the woods and I can see a distance out that way. Now I get tons more pictures. Granted, they're not all as perfect, right? But I'll get a picture of a deer, 40, 50 feet away coming through the woods, and then I'll get another picture of him closer, then I'll get another picture of him right at the salt or something like that. Okay, so I can see that. Now, there's lots of times, tons of times, that deer don't actually come to the salt. And all of those pictures I was missing when I had my camera set way too high and angled down. I wasn't getting any of those pictures. A deer would walk by within 15 or 20 feet of my spot, kind of glance over and go, and then just keep walking, and I never see it. Right? Because it never wandered right underneath the camera. This way, with my camera set down and pointed out, I can see that deer come in. I can see them walk across. I get a couple of pictures, maybe only one, but usually 2 pictures as they come across, and they didn't come into the salt. That can tell me all kinds of different things. Maybe they don't like what I get out in the salt. Maybe they were just whatever. I don't know what it tells me exactly, but it tells me that I would have missed that deer had I had my camera set differently. So mistake number 2, setting your camera too high and angling it down at too much of an angle. Okay? All right, mistake number 3 is a doozy. I've done it before, and every time I do it, I still make this mistake today because I'm too fast, right? About 50% of the comments on my channel are, Andrew, man, slow down. NB Wild, man, talk slower, blah, blah, blah. Y'all think I talk too fast. And that's, I do apologize. I repeat myself a lot because I know I speak quickly, okay? But what I'll do is I'll get going and I'll get checking cameras and I'll get all excited and I'll grab my camera off the tree and I'll be like, yes, sir, let's see what we got. And we crack it open and we pop the card out. Oh, no. I didn't shut the camera off first. 9 times out of 10, I just made every picture on this card unreadable. Okay, so I'll get it home, I'll pop it in, and it'll say file corrupted or cannot read file number, whatever, and it's that way for every picture, right? So I'm like, oh no. So I'll put it back in maybe or whatever, turn the camera on, and I'll see that there's 800 pictures on the camera. But if you pull your card with your camera still on, better than average chance you're going to corrupt the files on that SD card. Something about the way that the power of the camera writes onto the card, I'm not a techie guy, I don't know that. I just know that if I don't shut the camera off before I pull the card, I'm not going to be able to see what's on there. Almost never works, okay? So just make sure again, you got to slow down, you got to look around. You want to make sure that you approach your camera. You want to make sure that however your camera works, that you're familiar with it. You want to shut your camera off. You want to give it a second, let it power down, let the screens all go blank, pop your card out. Great, I got my card, swap the card out, put your new one in, right? Power your camera on. Again, make sure it all lights up, check for your battery, make sure, because sometimes I'll put a new card in there or a different card, turn it on and it'll say card full. Uh-oh. You just take it out, put it back in, and it comes up normal. So sometimes they just don't seat properly. You got to make sure you do that, right? So my camera's on, my camera's rolling. Right, we're good to go. Set it up in the tree. Everything's all set. Got my bear box on there. Got my little piece of wood to stick in there. And I'm all set to go. All right, so anyway, listen, just a couple of more tips for proper or, better trail camera placement. Hopefully you see some better success with that. And I hope this is something that can help you out. Until next time, happy hunting from the NB Wildman channel.